السلام عليكم. أعتذر عن هذا الانقطاع بسبب النت كما أعتقد.
يبدو أن الصوت غير واضح.
نعم، هناك انقطاع في النت. هل تسمعني الآن؟
أسمعك لكن الصوت ما زال بعيد نوعا ما. كما أن الصورة غير موجودة.
نعم، أظن هناك انقطاع في النت، لست أدري ما مصدره. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سنبدأ الآن. Hello everyone. My name is Samir Abbes from doctorate student in Arabic modern literature. I am working on semiotics, so I did some research that permits to me to understand some aspects of semiotics and its relationship with the cognition sciences. So uh, we could speak first about some semiotics notions. The notion of sign, as it defined at Ferdinand de Saussure, is a significant that refers to a signified. This is the sign. For him is an acoustic image that refers to an to an to a conceptual image. But the semioticians nowadays uh, tend to abstract this notion to a um, let's say that is more simple definition to the sign when the significant refers to a signified in general uh, without thinking about the linguistic side. So, for on the other hand, Charles Sanders Peirce said that the signs are in three kind. Uh, from a point of view of the relationship in between the sign that he called him representative and the signified that he called him the object. Uh, there is a third component of the sign at birth, which is the interpretant, which is the medium in between significant and signified, or representative and object. So, for him, uh, when we see to the sign from the relationship about representative and or the whole sign and its object, we could classify science to three kinds: the icons and the indexes and the symbols. When symbols are when symbols are seems to be a conventional science, when the relationship in between representative and object uh, is understanding only under the convention of the society or the collectivity. Uh, when, on the other hand, the icons and the indexes are built on causal links. So, for the icon, the representative has a resemblance relationship with the object. When the index has a causality relationship in between representative and the object. So the conventional and the convention and the causality is the difference in between semiotics of Peirce and semiotics of Ferdinand de Saussure. That permits to us to and understand the semiotics of Ferdinando Saussure as a part of the semiotics of Charles Sanders Peirce. In fact, the two semiotics have uh, cognitive aspects. So when we talk about definition of sign at Ferdinando Saussure, we could notice that the referring of significant to the signified in his own definition as an acoustic image that refers to a conceptual image. This definition is about cognition. It's related neuro anatomy of brain. So the acoustic image, it's uh, it's a notion that we could understand with the neurology of ears, uh, and the neurology of mind. So uh, when we could recognize an acoustic some example at tree, this is a cognitive process. The recognizing of the acoustic image is an uh, cognitive process related to the neuroanatomy of brain. On the other hand, the conceptual image and the referring of the acoustic image to the conceptual image is is a link, is a neurologic link in between these two images, the acoustic one and the conceptual one. Last night I discussed this subject with the Professor Boyar Hucha from Macedonia. He agreed with me in this idea. So, from another hand, we could speak about the conventional aspect of Ferdinand de Saussure semiotics, and also about the conventional aspects of Charles Sanders Peirce aspects, uh, that this conventional aspect has a lot of links and relationship with the cognitive sciences. When call a tree by the word tree, this and when we recognize by the word tree the trees that we know, this is a process that we could see from through it two parallel processes. One, from a hand, there is the psychological or the individual aspect. This aspect we spoke about it before. In the other hand, there is the other aspect of conventionality, of the convention. When I call a tree by the word tree, I know that the other persons of the society or the collectivity mean by this word the same notion that I mean. So I I call the tree by the word tree by a personal uh, conviction and or other or habit, and in other hand I call the tree by the word tree, uh, putting in my mind that others are agree with me. This this social agreement about science uh, gives me the more power to to make this sign stable all time. So in the other semiotics of pairs, we see that the causality in the iconic and the indexical signs uh, have maybe another aspect that is related to the cognition sciences. When I noticed the resemblance to the photographic photo uh, with the person that is shown in this photo, I I recognize the person in this photo. So this recognizing process is a cognitive process. In fact, I maybe it is built upon the memory or something like the memory. So the memory, of course, it's a cognitive topic, or because it has, as it seems, more links with the neurology of the human brain. Also, the causal sign for the indexical sign, when we notice the causal link in between the fire and the smoke. When we see smoke, we understand that is a fire somewhere. So the smoke refers to the fire. This is a very causal sign. So uh, this this causality in this kind of sign is in a part could be related to the memory and experience and the human experience, of course, and in this human experience is common, of course. So And in other hand, the causal link is built sometimes about personal experience, but in general, the common experience that we know with experience, with a personal experience, uh, that makes us to recognize the causal signs. So the causal sign is is built upon um, a common experience, or it's a kind of convention. We when we have the same memories, it be like a tradition or something like this. So it will be a common memory. In the same time, uh, it is related to the uh, personal memory or experience. So I know that smoke refers to the fire by experience and by reasoning. And in the same time, I know that others think the same way. So the causal sign is built in is one side upon causality. Uh, so we could find as a result that sign at Charles Sanders Peirce is also had a lot of relationship with cognition. Uh, in fact, the semiotics of Peirce has another aspect that is related to cognition, which we call the interpretant. He is the third component of the sign at Charles Sanders Peirce. The interpretant, which is the medium in between representative and object, is a mind process, which is uh, which is related to the work of neurological components of the mind, of the human mind. So, uh, the interpretation as a the interpretation as imminent side of the semiotics of Peirce is uh, built in its in its deep roots upon cognition processes. So we can't interpret without brain working. This is some observation about relationship in between semiotics and cognition. So we could now go forward another step with the notion of code. The code, as it defined defined it with in linguistics and semiotics, is a system of science which 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 is distinguished with the convention to about their signified. So when a system of science take from the society or the collectivity the compassion about its signified, we are talking about a code. So this the code, in fact, is used in the communication processes. The communication or the communication semiotics is built somehow about upon the notion of code. Roman Jacobson gave the method to understand the messages by defining the message to its components. There are six components. We have the transmitter and the receiver, the context, the canal, and the code. So the code, as Umberto Eco observed, it is another kind of argument. We have the deduction and yes, deduction and the other kind of argument, and we have the code as abdiction. The abdiction uh, is a is a very powerful way of argument in the thinking of Charles Sanders Peirce. When we hear the word tree, we we are invited to imagine the whole code of the forest elements, trees, grasses, flowers, animals, and rivers, rocks, lakes, and everything in the forest. So when the tree is an element of the code of forest, we know we know that the tree is an element of the forest. So the word tree refers somehow and in some situations to the notion of forest. This is the way that work the uh, code in our thinking, as I think. So I I think that Levi Strauss gave a good example about code in his book Structural Anthropology when he get a link about in between the parenty words like father, mother, brother, daughter, uncle, and this is the system of parenty word. He made a link with this system of words to a system of attitudes. So the father is uh, is the person that the responsible about the family. He gives love and solidarity with other persons in the family. The brother is the son is uh, the son has the role to obey his parents, his mother and his father. The brothers and sisters have attitude of love in between them, and of course, feeling of solidarity. So every parent word is related to an attitude, to a social attitude. This is the code as Levi Strauss explained. So I think that notion of code could help us to could help us to understand some aspects of cognition. So when we notice the system of pleasure and pain that Freud spoke about it, of course, the pleasure and pain are two extremities of a same system. There is a different degree of pain and pleasure. When we concept a link in between this system of pain and pleasure with another system of knowledge and ignorance. So we could say that knowledge refers to pain refers to ignorance, and pleasure refers to uh, pain refers to ignorance, and pleasure refers to knowledge. So the baby, when he see his mother, he feel the pleasure. He will be quiet and calm.